俺たち天下のボンバーマン。
一度火がつきゃやめられない。5人バトルで興奮爆発。本年最高の悪役、ボンバーマン by Adam。
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Ultimate Turbografx 16 review here on Player One Start. In today's video, we are actually going to start looking at the puzzle games and kind of the arcade-style games, as well as a few more strategy games for this system. Again, I'm kind of combining some subgenres, unlike what I had to do in my other videos, because of the limited game library of this system. As we go forward, I want to remind you that I am only doing HuCard games at this time that were released for the Turbografx 16 here in the United States. We're not doing PC Engine games, and we're not doing Turbografx CD games. That will be coming in a future video.
In the strategy category, we have already covered Alien Crush, which was a pinball game that was released as part of the launch lineup of the Turbografx 16. Adding on to that, we'll see some other strategy games that have been already reviewed on other platforms, as well as a couple of original titles. Overall, admittedly, I was not expecting to find this many titles in my collection, as again, we are going off of a limited library of games that was released for the Turbografx 16 on HuCard only. So let's go ahead and take a look at the puzzle and strategy games released for the Turbografx 16 before diving into a few of them. Boxyboy, or Sokoban World in Japan, is a puzzle video game released for the Turbografx 16 home video game console, published by NEC in 1990. This game is an adaptation of the puzzle game Sokoban, which was very popular in Japan before making its way over to the United States in the 1980s on the IBM PC and compatibles, as well as the Commodore 64 and Apple II computers. In this game, the player takes control of a warehouse worker in a top-down view perspective on the warehouse floor. The player can move in any of 4 directions, but cannot move crates backwards once pushed forward, unless they use the undo button. The goal is to push the crates to their designated area. It doesn't matter in what order you put the crates in, unless it prohibits you from completing the level. I have to say, this is a game that I played a lot on the IBM PC version, and because of that, I do find this game a bit nostalgic. One thing I note is different from the PC versions that I grew up with is that the puzzle layouts are a bit different, and you have the ability to create your own puzzles in this version. While the visuals are a great improvement over the PC version, I am not as fond of the music in this game. But I can always do what I did back in the day. I could pop in a CD, a cassette tape, or even put on a record album and listen to it while playing this relaxing puzzle game. While I don't think this concept will appeal to everyone, I do feel like that if you are a fan of puzzle games, you will definitely enjoy this, and the reviews of the time reflect that as well, giving it around a 70% or 3 out of 5 star rating, rating it at about fair, and I would say that's about where I would put this game as well. Cratermaze is another type of puzzle video game that was released in 1990 for the Turbografx 16. The object of this game is to rescue your friends from the evil Zen zombie, navigating your way through different time periods, laying craters to trap enemies, all while searching for a key that unlocks the door to the next way of time. The player can earn points by destroying enemies and by collecting treasure boxes. Occasionally there will be special power-up items that will appear on the menu to help you out. If you can make it through all 60 levels and rescue all your friends, then you have beaten the game. Otherwise, the game will end when you run out of lives. As with some other games on the Turbografx 16, passcodes are used in order to continue your progress between plays. Ratings for this game vary between 4 out of 10 and 6 out of 10. I would say it's definitely more on the 6 out of 10, because the game is definitely playable, and I didn't find anything that was like a game-breaking glitch. I will say that if you enjoyed the game Bomberman, this game is kind of similar to that, and other reviewers have noted this as well. However, I would say that Bomberman is probably the better of these two games, but in terms of price of collecting at the time of this review, I would definitely recommend Cratermaze before collecting Bomberman, just due to price. As again, this is a fairly decent title, and it won't break the bank. Devil's Crush is a pinball video game developed by Compile for the Turbografx 16, and it was also released in 1990. This is the second installment in the Crush pinball series after Alien Crush, which I already covered earlier in this series in launch games/early titles. The play area of Devil's Crush consists of a free-scrolling pinball table about 3 screens high. There are also 3 pairs of flippers. The player can nudge and bump the table to influence the ball's path. Using the tilt button too much, though, will result in the game tilting, and the flippers will stop working, causing a lost ball. There are many targets to shoot at for hidden bonus rooms, all while the game is presented in a visually pleasing art style. However, due to the content of this game, it is actually censored in the North American version as compared to the Japanese version. For example, all hexagrams have been changed to generic stars. This game was very highly received by gamers and critics alike upon its release, and is even still regarded to this day. In 1997, Electronic Gaming Monthly listed the Turbografx 16 version of this game as number 50 on its 100 best games of all time, calling it the best pinball game released on a home console to date, mainly because it didn't try to be anything like a real pinball table, which I suppose many other video games were trying to emulate. Overall, I did have a lot of fun with this game, and I found myself playing it a lot longer than some of the other titles here, just because I found it very interesting. The audio and strong visuals will hook you into the game, and the solid gameplay will definitely keep you invested for a long time. Time Cruise is a sci-fi themed pinball video game released for the Turbografx 16 in 1991. This game was exclusively released to the Turbografx 16 in order to compete against the popular Crush series of video games by Compile. Along with the standard gameplay you would expect from a pinball video game, the core game mechanic in this game is that the pinball can activate time machines. This allows the ball to travel to different bonus tables located in different areas of time. Also something different compared to other pinball video games is that the tables move horizontally as well as vertically, making the pinball area a lot bigger than you can get in real life. The art style is definitely something comparable to Devil's Crush. I think they got the visuals down pretty well. Where the game fails for me is in its soundtrack. I would actually mute this game and listen to something else, rather than hearing the themes in this game played over and over again. But again, that is just my personal preference. Overall, I did enjoy this game almost as much as I enjoyed Devil's Crush, but I'd kind of put it down there as an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. But I feel that people that enjoy pinball simulation video games would enjoy this, and people that don't may not be as big of a fan. Chu Man Fu is an interesting title. In this game, the player moves around colored balls to get them to their corresponding colored tiles. However, the player must also avoid the enemies, which can be killed by firing one of the balls at them. As opposed to a game like Sokoban, the balls can be moved forward or pulled backwards, and you can also push them around corners. Overall, I didn't find myself enjoying this title as much as a game like Sokoban, but I'd still give it around a 5 or a 6 out of 10. But I would increase the rating if you would like to play it with another player. I think that's where most of the fun of this game would come in, is if you were playing it 2 players. Tricky Kick is a puzzle video game developed by Alpha System and published by Information Global Service. It made its debut on the Turbografx 16 in 1990. The game's puzzles consist of creatures scattered through a landscape littered with various obstacles. The object of the game is to maneuver the pairs of the same type of monster or animal together by kicking them in straight lines until they make a match, running into each other. When a match is made between 2 characters, they disappear. However, kind of like in Sokoban, you can get characters stuck in an area where you can't match them together. If that's the case, you have to give up and try the level over again. This game received mixed to positive reviews since its release, with some reviewers calling it an extensive and challenging game that's great to take on with an audience. I agree with the statement that it is one of those games that can stir up a lot of group participation. Everyone has their own strategy on how to beat each level. Overall, it's an interesting concept, and it actually got me playing it for a little bit longer than I thought I would. King of Casino is a casino gaming simulation video game released for the Turbografx 16 in 1990. In this game, the player can play various casino games including poker, blackjack, slots, keno, or roulette in one of 15 different casinos. The game actually starts off more like a role-playing game, where you are given control of a character, and you start out in your hotel room before proceeding out to the overworld map where you can take on one of 15 different casinos. Each casino specializes in at least 2 of the 5 games available. You start out with a certain amount of money, and if you run out, the game ends. You can continue your game over multiple playthroughs by using the password system. However, there are only so many passwords you can get with one playthrough before you have to start over. This game is fairly neat, although I'm not quite sure what they were going for trying to aim a casino game towards kids. Maybe this was meant more for adults, but it can teach you the basics of some of the games played most often in casinos. I would rate this at about a 6 or a 7 out of 10, as again, there was nothing really game-breaking in it. The games are set up and kind of intuitive and easy to understand and use. However, I didn't find myself wanting to come back to this title, as it's not really anything more special than 5 different casino games. It is the 90s, and there is time for Klax. If I had to pick a game from the 90s that was everywhere and then eventually just disappeared off the face of the earth, I think this would be it. I've already showed this game on other platforms, so I'm just going to showcase a few of the examples of gameplay on the Turbografx 16. Honestly, this is a very good port of the game. The visuals transfer over well, the gameplay is solid, and it plays just like it does on its other platforms. Klax is a good game, and I don't know why it disappeared off of the face of the earth, but I always enjoy going back and playing it on these platforms because I am a fan of this gameplay style. I would rate this on the 7 or 8 out of 10, with my main criticism being drawn to the lack of a soundtrack and the fact that the sound effects can get annoying if you're just listening to them by themselves. Definitely listening to a musical accompaniment of your choice is recommended. Parasol Stars, the story of Bubble Bobble 3, was released initially in 1991 by Taito and is the sequel to Rainbow Islands, making it the third game in the Bubble Bobble series. Unlike many other games in the series, Parasol Stars was never released to arcades. It was originally developed for the NEC PC engine. This game was later released in limited quantities in North America for the Turbografx 16 by Working Designs. This game takes place on a number of different worlds, each with a distinct theme. Each world features 7 rounds, the last one always hosting a boss that must be defeated to progress to the next world. There are 8 main worlds. However, in order to complete the game properly, the player must open a secret door on the final world by collecting 3 star items, allowing access to 2 secret worlds. In this game, the player is armed with a parasol. The parasol is a multi-purpose device. It can act as a shield, as well as stun enemies, capture droplets, or hurl enemies. At many points in the game, it can be used as a parachute. Almost every level has droplets which drip from points in the level. They fall under the influence of gravity and roll along the platforms within the screen. The player can capture these with their parasol and throw them at enemies. The player can hold more than 1 droplet at once, and if they get 5, they merge into a large droplet with a special power. This game received mostly positive reviews upon its release, earning around a 9 out of 10. I think having this game specifically designed for the hardware helps with its design. And if you're a fan of this genre of game, I would definitely give this a try. Bomberman is a strategic maze-based video game that was originally developed by Hudson Soft and has been on a variety of platforms since the first release in 1985 on the Famicom. And this game is a greatly expanded reimagining of the first game in the series, starring White Bomberman on a quest to rescue Lisa. The game contains a single-player or multiplayer mode. In the single-player mode, the player goes through 8 worlds, each one divided into 8 stages. Each stage is presented as a maze of blocks filled with enemies. By using bombs, the player must destroy the blocks, blocking their path, and defeat all of the enemies. Once all enemies are defeated, the hidden exit is uncovered, and the player can proceed to the next stage. Each stage also includes 1 hidden power-up underneath one of the blocks, which can increase the number of bomb drops, increase the range of the bomb's explosions, and other useful power-ups. The last stage in each world is a boss battle. This game also includes a multiplayer mode, which allows up to 5 players to compete against one another, which would require the use of the Turbografx 16 Turbo Tap. Multiplayer mode plays very similar to single-player mode, with a few exceptions, but there is also an alternate multiplayer mode called Skull Mode, in which skulls sometimes appear underneath hidden blocks, which are detrimental if picked up. This game received mostly positive critical reception upon its release on the Turbografx 16, and is one I would say is definitely worth a pickup. I do enjoy the Bomberman style, and I really appreciate the multiplayer mode, where I think most of the fun is going to be had in this game. While on the topic of Bomberman, I would also recommend Bomberman 93, which plays almost exactly like this game, but it has some differences. For example, the stages are more interactive in Bomberman 93, with devices such as conveyor belts and teleporters appearing in certain areas. The single-player mode also utilizes a password system, or there is limited save memory if the player wants to save. Multiplayer mode is again really fun in this game. There are multiple stages to choose from in this mode, each having its own theme and gimmick. If I had to recommend one over the other, I would say Bomberman 93 in terms of gameplay, but the original Bomberman on Turbografx will be cheaper. Drop Off by Data East is actually kind of a breakout clone. This game was published in 1990 for both the PC Engine and the Turbografx 16, and being a clone of Breakout, the player moves a paddle back and forth in order to destroy objects. The objects slowly descend from the screen, and the goal is to keep them from reaching the bottom, taking them out as they go down. The game is divided into 16 stages, each stage having 5 rounds. If you're a fan of Breakout, you may like this game. I would give it more of a 6 out of 10, as it didn't really hold my interest well, but again, it does play well.
Well, there you have it. That kind of wraps up the puzzle, RPG, and strategy genre here on the Turbografx 16. Although I will point out most of my favorites are available on other systems as well, and I think that's probably where most of my favorite games lied. I really do like the Bomberman port on this system, but I like Bomberman on almost every platform. Same thing with Boxyboy. That game is also known as Sokoban in other regions, but it seems to get renamed every time it goes to another system. But I think it was well done on the Turbografx 16, as well as other systems, so it's not really something that you have to go buy a Turbografx 16 specifically to get these games. So since we kind of put a lid on these games, we only have one more major game genre to go through, and that is sports games. So stay tuned for that video coming out to you real soon. In the meantime, if you like what you see, please remember to click that like button below. Also, leave a comment below, let me know what you liked about today's video. Again, if you grew up with any of these games, let me know what your experience has been. Again, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned because I have more content coming. I will see you all in the next one.
If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please remember to click on this subscribe button. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.